Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. But before we dig into some of the details with the major winter storms that are coming up this week, there are two of them. I want to just take a step back and show you a picture that my neighbor and friend and mentor Bill Chapman took here of some ice pillars, or commonly called light pillars. He's looking towards Champaign, Illinois from our neighborhood in Mahomet. And if we look the other direction here, we saw them as well as we looked over Lake of the Woods. They're a pretty amazing phenomena, and usually when we see them, we are talking about some brutally cold air that's in place. And why you see them is that when the air gets this cold, there's a lot of very thin cirrus out there almost all the time, and they're producing ice crystals that are falling, and when it's this cold, they get all the way to the surface. And what happens is a lot of these ice crystals fall as plates. So a light source can be reflected off the bottom of those plates and basically bounced into your eye. So as you look toward that light source, you see a pillar of light above it from the light bouncing off of the bottom of this. But again, these ice pillar-like features are often a sign of how very, very cold the air is. And speaking of ice, across the country, we've had a lot of it. This is just looking back over the weekend here from Portland, Oregon. This is Oregon City, right? National Weather Service out of Portland posted this picture from Jeff showing 1.5 inches of ice accumulation here on his basketball goal. And then over here on the right, Tim Buckley and Nicole Braxton, just an amazing video here near Greensboro, North Carolina, of damage to these trees just falling here under the weight of the ice. Now, we think about this in the context of what's coming up, and so much of what's coming up, well, it's determined by this temperature spread across the United States. You can see we've actually pulled sub-freezing temperatures clear down to the Gulf Coast and tucked away in the midsection of the country early this morning. This is 2:30 a.m. temperatures. We were down here, and this is not wind chill, down here in the minus 20 degree range. There will be a powerful coastal low that is developing over the next few hours here that is going to, over the next 36 hours, race right along this tight temperature gradient here toward the north and east. And about the only holdout for the warmer conditions is down here in Florida. But we do have to be on the lookout for some severe storms down here. I'll show you that in just a few moments as the tail end of this front swipes through that area. Now, speaking of temperatures, this animation on the left goes over the last week, and each dot that appears here represents where we were approaching or tying or possibly even breaking a daily record temperature, and those cooler colors represent the colder side of that. So you see yesterday and now early this morning the depth of that cold air that is in place. But I want to put this into the context of the last 180 days. So this is for the entire lower 48 and southern Canada. This is a large area that we're going to analyze here. And the dashed line that runs right down the middle would be the average temperature going back to August 19th all the way until yesterday. And what I want you to see is that once you get into fall, late fall, and now winter, that we have had only brief interludes of cold air below normal temperatures. And most of it, especially from December through January, we spent well above average for the most part during that time period. Well, that split in the polar vortex finally working its way over toward North America here has helped take our temperatures down to the coldest we've seen them. And the question is this going to hang on or is this going to break? And I'll get to that answer in just a few moments. But I just wanted to put winter into context because I think we're all going to remember it because of this and not because of all of that. All right, the cold air, as I said, has made it clear to the Gulf of Mexico. But if you go into West Texas, this is from the National Weather Service out of El Paso, posted this yesterday, just showing you snow that far to the south. So that cold air has penetrated pretty far to the south, and it's really represented here with this all hazards weather map. Now, this was last evening on Sunday evening, and the reason why I show you this is so many of us in atmospheric sciences were just amazed to see the National Weather Service cover so much area with winter storm warnings. You could have gone from New Mexico all the way to Vermont. That's traveling well over 2,000 miles and never left a winter storm warning. But the thing I think a lot of us were taken by was all of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, most of Indiana, all of Ohio, and then look at the other states here that were almost completely covered by winter storm warning. We have a significant ice threat in through here as well, and we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. But this was last evening. Here's the latest update, and the storm is starting to move. Again, it's going to take shape right down here and then race up through the Ohio River Valley throughout the next 36 hours. Wind chill warnings on the back side of this, broad sector of winter storm warning. And the ice storm warning you see here, there will be significant ice accumulation all the way through where I'm kind of highlighting here with the cursor. This is also not to say that there isn't more coming in the northwest as the flow dives in just like this. In fact, we can see it by looking at infrared satellite temperatures. There is the depth of the trough that will be invigorating this deep low later today, right here on the border of Texas, Louisiana, and the Gulf of Mexico. But as you watch this air kind of just funnel down here deep into Mexico, I want to bring your attention to the northern plains because this is an infrared satellite image. And what you see here as the sun was setting last night is, watch the colors. The surface temperatures here were as cold as the cloud top temperatures down here in the southern part of the U.S. And if I just pause this, and let me just show you one thing here. This is incredible. Take you all the way to the end of this animation. A couple of things to point out. You can see the Missouri River very well. And you see that area of, I know it's blue, but the warmer colors in there, that's warmer. That is actually the urban heat island effect of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Just incredible to see these things. Okay, here's the flow though. And what we've got is, by midday today, a deep trough that's cutting in through here. Now, if you just follow the flow, it quickly builds into a ridge right here. Now, dynamically speaking, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, we get what's called ageostrophic flow right here that causes divergence. This is where the air avoids or moves out of an area, allowing the air to rise in that region. Also, given that we have a jet streak rounding the base and one here coming over this ridge, we also have strong ageostrophic flow producing divergence, basically inside, I'll just put a big X there, right inside this area. So the atmosphere is going to attempt to take a low from this area straight toward that area. My drawing is getting a bit messy, and as it does so, it's going to develop. And we're not done. There's going to be another trough that comes in here on this ridge that's out in the open Pacific there that dives in behind this. But to put this all together, let me show you what's going to happen by midday today. Now, this is about a mile above our heads, but there will be a low forming right here over the lower Mississippi River Valley. And you can see it drawing all that warm, moist air up into it on this side. But that's a mile above our heads. Look at what's going on at the surface. See, at the surface here, the low pressure center is out ahead of it, and all this cold air that's coming in on the back side, right over this area, okay, we're going to get that overrunning setup once again, where the cold air is underneath it, but the warm air is on top of it, and that gives us the best chance at having the freezing rain. So that is kind of the dynamics explained of this particular setup. And now what I want to show you is the forecast. So a cool thing at Nutrien, we have a subscription to the European model now. So I get to make my own graphics, and I just started building them lately. So I hope you like my new graphics here. But this is from the European operational run. The blues are snow. This color you see through here, these pinks to black, I tried to make them very dark because I want you to be able to see where the ice thread is. And then the green shading is going to be rain. Okay, so as we get this playing, it's going to play pretty quickly. Here we go. This is by noon today. So the low is taking shape here in the lower Mississippi River Valley. We will see heavier snows on the back side of this. This is 12 p.m. today Central Time, but look at the ice threat right in through here. Now we're going to focus on this central U.S. storm to start. This is 6 p.m. this evening, getting into the overnight hours. And what I want to show you is this evening into the overnight hours in through this area, there will be snowfall rates that'll exceed an inch to maybe an inch and a half per hour. And that does get over into parts of Kentucky and Ohio as well. The snow spreads towards Detroit and into this part of Ontario. Now you can see where the ice is going to be according to the European model, with the heavier rains moving through Virginia, North and South Carolina, down here toward Georgia. And remember, there is the severe thunderstorm threat down here in parts of Florida on the tail end of this. So this is 12 a.m. Tuesday. Now we get into the early morning hours on Tuesday, 6 a.m. and then noon on Tuesday. And that low quickly exits to the north and east, but there's still scattered snow showers on the back of it. Now, meanwhile, we did have more flow coming into the Pacific Northwest, and I'll show you those snow maps in a moment. And there's another wave that's now cutting through the Four Corners states. So this is Tuesday noon. This is Tuesday evening. Now we're getting into the overnight hours and early morning on Wednesday. And if I just kind of step back, you can see that the European model here early in the morning on Wednesday is putting down quite a bit of snow, real Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, right here in parts of Oklahoma, and yet more ice right here in parts of Texas. Now, as we go forward, that ice threat translates here just south of Dallas. There's going to be a very challenging forecast around the Dallas-Fort Worth area on where that rain snow line is going to be. But snow moves into Missouri, moves into Illinois. See on the northern side of this, this is 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. And now what we've got is from this part of Louisiana and Arkansas right here through Tennessee. That's our ice threat. And as we now get into Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, and evening, this low moves up to the north. More snow in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. And again, a great example of a cold air damming event right here along the Appalachian Mountains in parts of Virginia with more ice threat. So this is now going to get ourselves into Friday morning. There it is. There's Friday afternoon, getting toward the evening time period, and that low races on off to the north and east as well. Now, as we work our way into next week, you see this high pressure cell here? It's finally moving away from the Canadian Prairie, from the central plains of the United States, and is now over the southeast. So the cold goes with it. And as that high moves over North Carolina, this returns warm air back into the middle part of the country, such that by Sunday, if there is a system that takes shape right here, we could be bringing rain to those areas that are going to get pounded with snow this week. So this is the way things shape up just through our next week. Now let's put it together in a few single maps to see the true impact of this. Ice first. This is from the operational European model, the 0Z run. And this just shows us where the model over the next week is going to put down ice. So there's the cold air damming event. There is the overrunning that stretches, look at this, from parts of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, all the way through the lower Mississippi River Valley into parts of Texas. Texas already, as I checked this morning, has got almost 1.5 million people without power, and we're going to continue to see the ice causing problems. From the National Weather Service, over the next 72 hours, what's the probability of a 1/10 of an inch? Again, with these next couple of systems, it's right in through this area that we have our greatest threat of ice. So take heed of what this is giving us here. On the snow side of things, operational European, let's start west to east, packing up. Remember that flow coming over the top like this? We're going to be getting well over 2 to 3 feet of snow here as you look in the Cascade Mountains, and big snows here in the Blue Mountains in this part of the Northern Rockies. California, I've got some news for you in a little bit. Sit tight. I want to show you what the pattern's going to do for March. Our snow drought region right here, missing out on all of this. But the major snow corridor will race right in through this area here, and this is only using a 10-to-1 ratio. Just want to make sure that that's clear. And also on my color bar, I break over into the blues at 4 inches. So you can kind of get some perspective here on how much snow. Now to show it to you from the National Digital Forecast Database, they're also using a 10-to-1 ratio here. Here's the central part of the U.S. Pause the video. Take a close look. In other words, this is coming straight from the National Weather Service over the next 2 days. This is just through midnight on Tuesday. And here's what things look like across the east. Okay, I wanted to give you this perspective. I think this corridor right in through here, as you can tell, has the best chances of picking up some heavy snow. And this spot really in particular here, before you get up into the northern parts or the interior of New York into the, all the way up to Maine, we could be seeing some places in here picking up. Well, let me show you the probabilities here. Here's the chance of getting 4 inches of snow. All right, so you can see the probabilities over here on the left. Let's now go and show you the probability of getting 8 inches of snow. And you see that corridor that I just highlighted, right? All the way from Arkansas and this part of Oklahoma, clear to, Detroit, getting here into the eastern Great Lakes, cutting right across Indiana and Ohio. 70-80% chance of picking up at least 8 inches. And then this is the probability of getting a foot of snow. I think we could connect this area right in through here, given that the fact that using a 10-to-1 ratio is not wise. It's so cold, we could be looking at 15-to-1 or 20-to-1 ratios in this area, and therefore getting quite a bit more snow out of this. The problem with that kind of snow is it's going to blow around, and therefore you could clear a road or clear a driveway or sidewalk, and it'll blow right back over it with the strong winds that are going to be coming in here. Rainfall. This is what we're expecting over the next week, and you can see that from parts of Louisiana all the way down here in parts of the south and the southeast, the chances of seeing some extremely heavy rainfall in excess of 1.5 inches to over 3 inches of rainfall, it's there. The dry regions right here back up into the Canadian Prairie. Now from this point forward, let's go look at that compared to normal. So this is the week 1 precipitation anomalies. And then what I want to do is I want to show you how this all evolves. Because by day 10, this is where we expect the tropospheric polar vortex and the stratospheric polar vortex to be. So the jet stream is going to run around it just like this. So we're going to move one shortwave through the Great Lakes states. We're going to unfortunately miss a lot of what's going on here in California with this ridging, but watch how we switch from day 10 out to day 15. Look at that. Look at this deep trough that's cutting here across the western U.S. and the evidence of some large ridging here, some subtropical ridging here over the southeast. And so when I see this particular pattern, I'm not going to show you what the models are producing in terms of week 2 precipitation anomalies because I don't think they've got it right at this point. What I want to show you is that with a pattern that you see like this is going to set up an active corridor through the midsection of the country. This will return snow to those regions that were in snow drought, and this really increases the chances of precipitation in the northwest and in the western part of the United States. This brings warmth back in, starting from the Gulf Coast, pressing through the Midwest, and you're going to see that in a few moments. But you know, when you think about where that snow drought is, in the northern plains and the Canadian prairie, I went back and found the snowiest Februaries on record, and I just want you to see the pattern. You see this deep trough here off the west coast? Well, there it is by the time we get to the very beginning of March. So this is the right pattern to be returning more snow farther to the north. That's the first piece. From there, I just broke down what the teleconnections are doing. They're all breaking away from where they were. But I think the most important is that the polar vortex is retreating back toward the Arctic, and that's allowing for the Arctic oscillation to go positive again, which means low pressure over the Arctic. The NAO to switch, get rid of that huge ridge there, the EPO to go positive, and troughs to dive into the west. That's the negative PNA pattern. There's also some interesting things happening in the tropics. So the MJO appears to be collapsing back into null space, and there's some evidence that it might want to pop back out over here on a bit of a resurgence with our La Nina. So La Ninas tend to do this. They reach a peak and they fade a bit, then they come back. And I'm going to show you the comeback here. Because over the next 15 days, you see the blue colors I'm kind of highlighting here? These are strong trade winds that are developing, that are pushing over toward, well, right here over Indonesia, Australia, where they're going to be met with strong westerlies. That's going to give us a lot of rising motion in the MJO region 4 and 5. In other words, right over here. Now, for North America, that tends to let the pattern relax, and it tends to be a milder pattern. And this is really what we saw back at the front half of winter, all right? So when we watch the temperatures evolve, well, this is maximum temperatures here. So what I'm going to show you is maximum temperatures and their departure from normal. We get this playing. Well, here's Tuesday going into Wednesday. Very cold air still in place in the southern plains. But now watch, there's Thursday. Moderation happening at the end of the week. And for next weekend, there's Saturday's high temperatures and departure from normal. And here's Sunday. We lose the massive contrast here as the pattern begins to shift and evolve. And look at this. This is now going out here day 5 through 10. The Canadian prairie, what a flip-flop as we look out here toward the end of the month of February. And the colder air here over the south is fleeting as well, and it's moving, such that by the time we get out to days 10 through 15, while the European is more aggressive at backing that cold air up toward Alaska and parts of the Pacific Northwest, the GFS, well, it has a similar pattern, just not quite as aggressive, and it keeps a lot more cooler air in the Canadian prairie, or at least coming back into the Canadian prairie as we begin the month of March. Now, as I finish this up, this is what the first full week of March looks like. And we can see here from the European model that it's been pretty consistent with returning of the warmth back into the southern part of the United States, with more troughing along the west coast of North America. Now, with more troughing along the west coast of North America, the first week of March tends to favor wetter conditions here, and with the subtropical ridge forming an active storm track in these areas where I just drew those arrows. And take a look at this. For the whole of the month of March, for the west coast of the United States, we can now start to see better precipitation. In other words, looking wetter. It's also looking quite active in this area and in through here as well, with the driest conditions, or I should say drier conditions, stretching here across this part of the plains. Now, of course, I don't want to see this, but it is a signal that the models are showing. Now, for those of you that watch my video in California, take a look. This is what the pattern looks to be like in the middle of the month. And can you see the ridge that's in place here, where I'll put an X, and the trough that's sitting here off the west coast? Well, why I show you that is because the wettest Marches on record, which here they are, this is for California, all right, tend to have a ridge in place here and flow that comes around just like that. Now look, this is mid-March. This is the wettest March. We're getting signs that we could go over to a wet March for the West Coast yet again this year. Now, is it going to make the top 10 list? Probably not, but it's at least a signal that is worth looking at, because if that sets up in that direction, we finally get that flow, as you see right here, that comes out of that Pineapple Express flow that's going to return moisture. Now, we got to keep talking about this and keep watching it, but I want everybody to know that we're starting to see those signals, okay? All right, I'm going to stop it there. Thanks for your attention this morning. Have a great rest of your week and be aware of these next two major winter storms, all right? Thanks.